All right. We are in week 3. You are rocking it. Give yourselves a hand because you're doing great. And that goes for absolutely everybody. I don't care if you have already, I've got, some folks who have, turned in their notes and their art assignments, and I don't care if you've done that or if you've not done anything. You're still doing great because guess what? You're here and we're going to have an awesome, awesome class. And I'm super, super excited about that. At this point, as of last night, everybody who needs a mentor, meaning that you're in as a full trainee, ought to have gotten a mentor. If that is you, yeah, put a thumbs up. Let me just make sure that we've got your mentors. Awesome. There was a question on if I need to be copied on communication with you and your mentor. No, I do not. I never need to. That's up to you guys. However, both mentors and mentees, you guys can feel free to reach out to me if you need to for any reason. So if you need to, something's not working or something you're not sure about, you need some help, I'm always there for the mentors, but I'm there for you on the trainee end as well. But no, you guys, basically, you and your mentor come together and you decide, really driven by you and what you need, but you decide what's going to work best for your relationship. And that's driven by what the trainee wants, and that is, can be anything from, your weekly contact could be a weekly phone call or a weekly Zoom meeting or a quick little text. It could be anything. It's up to you guys. But let me know if you have questions about that. So that part, somebody was asking about the art chart. Remember your art chart from the welcome pack. Be sure to be checking and doodling those things off whenever you complete any of your requirements. The mentor contact will start with week 3. So if it says mentor connection, you can just put a big old NA or whatever you want. It can be absolutely anything. And in fact, make it NA, but make NA stand for something besides not applicable. What else could it stand for? Salt. What else could it stand for? It could be like, nope. ARTbundance was waiting to bring me my mentor. Who knows? Anyway, so don't worry about those. Obviously, you didn't need to contact your mentor in the past 2 weeks. Okay, we are going to hop right in for our week 3 content. Let me just check in first. Does anybody have any immediate questions or something that would help you feel more comfortable, that you really feel like it needs to be answered before we go forward? Happy birthday, Lily! Oh, is it Lily's birthday? How awesome! Goodness gracious. I'm going to unmute everybody so we can sing. We're singing happy birthday to Lily. Don't worry about matching. We'll sound like doo-doo, but we're going to sing. It's going to be awesome. Here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lily. Happy birthday to you.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. That was great. Always good to sing. Happy birthday and happy Easter and Passover and spring and all kinds of good stuff. Anybody have any immediate questions that we need to address? Okay, so remember, you can choose if you want to be on speaker view or gallery. If you want to just see whomever is speaking right now, that would be moi. You can put us on speaker view. Wait, hold on. My speaker view isn't working. Hold on. All right. Or if you want to see everybody's sweet, beautiful faces, you can keep everybody on gallery view. Either or. Okay, so week 3. This is the second week in the ARTbundance principles. At this point, we are still in this mode where I think I have already told you that like the first third of the program is really all about taking this information and really playing with it with yourself. I'm saying don't even worry about how this works with clients and students yet, unless you want to. I mean, I remember, you know, there's been some discussion on the forum about when we were doing the archaeology art assignments and saying, you know, yeah, I can see how these could work with a client, or, you know, get excited and think, oh, I can totally see myself doing this in a workshop or with a client. Go there, but don't feel like you have to, because we are going to get to that point. And we also are really enjoying this time, which it really is kind of about you, because you are going to be able to apply all of this and make it your own, which, as you know, is very important to me. You're going to apply all of this much better if it's something that is part of your experience, right? If I just am, you know, teaching you and saying, well, here are these 9 principles, it's not organic to you. You know, it's going to be much harder to kind of conjure and bring them forward. So we're really about making this time, especially in these first few weeks, very much about your own introspective process. I have had times in past, as you know, you're the 23rd time that we've done this. I have had times when people in the past, in the first few weeks, have been like, when do we talk about like coaching? And, you know, this is all just sort of like, you know, feels very sort of self-discovery, but which is true. And there's a method to that. There's a reason to that. So trust that that foundation is there so that you're making this your own. That's really what this is all about. So last week, you did your first dive into the principles and kind of finding out what they meant to you first. This week, I'm expanding. I'm going to share a little bit about my ARTbundance lens for each of the principles. And think of it as, it's kind of like an overlay. Like if this was a paper craft, because shouldn't everything just be a paper craft? If this was a paper craft, think of this, like last week was your work of art, and this week is like a vellum, you know, that kind of like, you know, it's like, it's opaque, translucent. It's like a little overlay that goes on top of it. And so really, this is not here. I just want to make it clear that, you know, if I talk about, okay, here's sort of an ARTbundance view of choice, and if it's really different than what you came up with, hey, if you like it, grab onto it. If you don't, stay with what you with what you connected with. Because remember, the principles, they're not even qualities, they're energies. They're energies and they're energy containers. So I'm going to go through each of the principles and invite you to play, and we're going to have fun going a little bit deeper with them. So I asked you to play with this poll a little before class, but let's just put it in the chat. And in the chat, just stick what you think is your most developed principle and what you think is your least developed principle. And I'm just going to put the principles up on the screen just so you have them. All right, thank you for doing that. I'm going to stop sharing. So you'll see, I'm just sort of scanning through. You'll see that I very specifically, I didn't say your best principal and your worst principal, because that's not the right context. I was very specific about my language, about it's their muscles. I think of them as muscles that can be strengthened and energies to be activated. And that's what the principles really are to me, are these essences or energies that can be activated at any given time. And they're really fun to work with in coaching. But right now, we're really just honing in on ourselves. But being very clear that it's not that it's not your best and your worst. It's just what's easiest for you to activate. I promise you that you have all activated every single principle many, 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 many times, even the ones that feel like, no. You have activated that, because really anytime we bring anything forward in our life, anytime we make anything happen, we are engaging these principles, and sometimes we're not even really aware of it. So I know some of you may have taken, perhaps in one of the recent samples, one of the quizzes where you added, you said which one was most, I think it was a scale of 1 to 10. Who took that quiz? I've sent that will be sent in this week's guidebook. And the social media tool pack that you get when at the end, when you complete all your requirements, actually has everything you need to plug that quiz into your own website or your own social media. It's a great lead generation tool. People love quizzes, right? So we'll talk obviously more about that later. But if you haven't done that quiz yet, I'm not going to do it in class right now. But if you haven't done that or haven't done it recently, it's on, let's see, it's just there's a couple of pages, page 3 and 4 in this week's guidebook. So I just recommend, that would actually be a really quick, a good thing to do first, actually, if you haven't done it yet. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, this particular class is a little bit different just because I'm going to be actually talking more than I generally do, because again, I'm sharing an ARTbundance view and perspective, which is also my shared perspective on each of the principles. For each principle, I'm going to give, number one, just a quick look at what it is, a quick summary. I'm going to name 3 challenges that can get in our way of activating this principle. And then 3 keys to activating it, 3 things that help us connect into that principle and bring it forward. I'm going to go through all of these. Now, these things are in your guidebook. So in your notes this week, here's my invitation to you. Don't worry so much about writing down, here are the 3 keys, here are the 3 blocks. Those are, or here are the 3, what do I call them, challenges. Because all of that, let me just show you for those of you who really like to have all your information, just to calm that part of you down. So here's your guidebook I'm going to send you after class. And for each one, you can see all of your notes are right here. So don't worry about making sure I got, the 3 challenges, the 3 keys. You're going to get that. If you really want to, you can write them down, but don't feel like you have to capture that. What I would invite you to do instead is to capture the things that feel like, ooh, that's a little piece of vellum I want. Like, oh, that I like. that feels maybe different. I haven't thought of that. So as I'm talking, think of it as like, you know, you're in your art supply store and you're just grabbing like, oh, that's a little piece of ribbon I like. There's some stickers, that's cool. And so make your notes this week just collections. Maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's an image that comes to your mind. It might not even be something I say. It might be something that comes to you when you hear something that I say. So these notes are really just like gathering, you know, ooh, those are the embellishments I'd like to add to my own developing sense of the principles. So that's my plan. I'm going to go through them and just invite you as I'm sharing, you know, just have some fun with notes this week. All right. And then at the end of that, I'm going to move through the 9 principles. And at the end, then we're going to have some time to move in and into some groups to talk about things that, you know, some of the ribbons and frou-frou that you've that you've collected in this time. All right. So I'm going to start with gratitude. So gratitude, I think of as the core principle. I don't really think of them in an order except for the core principle and then what I think of as a crown principle. Some people really like to find, you know, their own order and what builds on what. You know, that's the thing. You get to play with these principles and they can be absolutely anything you want. I think of gratitude as the core principle because I think of it as the core energy for joy. It is the pathway to an authentic love of life. It's our pathway to playing with life and creating and experiencing our ultimate sense of joy. And when gratitude is like, it's like when it's, you know, engaged, it makes all of the rest of the principles activate so much more easily. 3 challenges to gratitude. Number 1 is when there are associations that may be negative. We might have an old belief or a resistance, maybe an association with pressure, you know, that gratitude feels like a drain or something you should do, or, you know, saying prayers when you grew up, or there just may be something that feels like it's pressure or something that's negative about gratitude on its own. And that can sometimes be a block in and of itself. Another challenge is a lack of consistency, because gratitude, you know, it's one of those things that it doesn't really work if you just kind of engage it or activate it, you know, every now and then. And so, you know, who here has ever started a gratitude journal and, you know, for a couple of days or maybe a week or maybe a month or even a year. And so, you know, there's a lack of consistency that can get in our way. And then the other challenge for gratitude is perspective when life is hard. That, you know, the harder our circumstances are, that can feel harder to activate and turn on the gratitude switch, to activate the energy that gratitude has to come in. And, you know, I think of the principles, they're not of us. They're like other things that we can call upon them. I once, hold on, I'm just going to mute everybody. I just got a little background noise. Yeah. I once wrote, one of the things I do separate from Artella is I write and direct musicals. And I once wrote a musical and kids were in it. And the concept was they found this old card catalog. Of course, they're modern kids, so they're like, what is it? Because they don't have an idea what the card catalog is. But what they find is that it's magic, and that by pulling out a card of somebody from history that they can borrow or check out the traits of that person in history. So they can borrow Harriet Tubman's perseverance, right? They can borrow Florence Nightingale's inventiveness, just as like you would borrow a book. And that is a really, that to me is very much my understanding of the principles, is that we can call upon them, that when we activate them, it's like we're checking out the book and then it becomes ours. So to the key, 3 keys to activate the principles. Number 1 is to create a process for continuity and consistency, but a process that is motivating and fun and attractive, and something that you will really, that you can sustain. And this goes back to that consistency thing. You know, for those of us who have started a gratitude journal and have, you know, done, woo, 3 days and then lost it, our way of activating something that is more consistent is a way to plug into something either that we'll really look forward to doing, and or something that we're doing already. And so this is something that's great for us. It's great to suggest with our clients. There are lots of art assignments that are, you know, really fun, easy art projects that are fun. And so you look forward to it, and it doesn't even feel like a gratitude, you know, practice. It feels like an art activity. Or something that you already do. If you already wash the dishes every day, or take a walk every day, or go out in the garden, or stay stuck in traffic when we're outside in the world. How can those become gratitude practices? So that's a first key, is looking at how can we create a practice that is consistent and that can kind of survive the fluctuations of life, but that it's motivating. And that's a really important thing about that art assignments give. Another key to activating gratitude is to broaden our perspective and look for gratitude beyond the obvious, right? Because, you know, what are you grateful for? The first things that most people will say are, you know, health, family, you know, those, especially when we're going through challenging times, often we need to go a little deeper. You know, it's hard when you're the sort of generic default is being grateful for your health. When your health isn't good, or you're having challenges in your health, that's hard. And so the key here is to broaden the perspective. And sometimes that's taking a bigger, right? Looking at the bigger picture. And sometimes it's looking at the very, very smaller picture. One tool, ARTbundance tool, that I think of with this is the idea of first clause. Think of Santa Claus here. You know, we say things like, oh, it's such a really great opportunity, but, you know, I mean, it wasn't like it was hard to get chosen. Everybody who applied got in. First clause, second clause. We go into second clause very often, where we could stay in first clause. It doesn't matter how many people applied. It doesn't matter. First clause is still true. You know, you're in this program, or you know, or whatever it is that you're, you know, excited about, or whatever it is. First clause is where gratitude lives. So just paying attention to when that little semicolon comes up, you know, it's a beautiful day, but you know, or even just in the little ways, right? That first clause. The third activation key is really to understand how amazing gratitude is, and understand that it's not just being appreciative, it's not just saying that you're grateful, but that it's a way to breathe and a way to be, and to really be aware of, it's like this door when we live, when we are led with this energy of gratitude, how that changes so much. And to activate that, of course, well, how can we be aware of it? We're aware of it when we're tracking it, you know, when we're consciously looking at every time gratitude comes into my midst, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to amplify, and I'm going to watch and see how I feel. So it's like looking for the evidence, being detectives and looking to see, yes, this does make a difference. And this is the way it makes a difference is of course different for all of us, but really being aware that this isn't just something to do. It's not a practice. It's not a you should be grateful. That's not what this is. This is about an opportunity to partner with life in a way that is so there's so much unity. That's really what gratitude is the unity between us, everything we can see, everything we can't see. So I'm going to move on to our next principle. And if you have questions, you know, feel free to jot them down, because like I said, I'm just going to go through the principles so that you guys have some time to discuss. If you have questions for me or for others, you can share them, you know, in the forum, to me directly with your mentor. So feel free to jot down questions. Normally in most classes, I'd have more an opportunity for feedback, but I do want to move through these so we can have discussion time. Balance is the one I'm going to talk about next. Balance is maintaining an equilibrium. It's an equilibrium both within ourselves and in our external lives. The three challenges to balance that I've identified. Number one is our own mismanagement of priorities and values, either not knowing what they are or not honoring what they are. A second challenge is a skewed and distorted definition of what balance is, and a societally influenced definition of what it means to be balanced. Because what we think of as balance many times is actually not attainable. And that is, in short, to have all the good stuff all the time. You know, if I am grateful and productive and delighted and caring and compassionate and generous and well-rested and present, then I will be balanced. That's not what balance is. And if we're looking, if that's our definition of life balance, we're not going to get there, first of all. And so we're always going to feel like crap, because we're always going to feel like, you know, we're failing. And so that can, and then we're also denying ourselves the gift of what balance really is. A third challenge that gets in the way of balance is exhaustion and stress. Stress and exhaustion. Very hard to, you know, try to engage greater balance when you have gotten to that point where even thinking about balance is overwhelming. So activation keys. Number one is embracing the meaning of balance. If you really look at what balance really is from an ARTbundance perspective, balance is literally balancing the poles. It is literally finding peace between the two ends, the positive and the negative. Balance is the photograph. Remember that it's the photograph in photography. The negative has to be there, or else you don't have an image. It doesn't look like anything. Balance is not your perfect pie chart of how you have all these little aspects of your life that have the perfect, you know, percentages in your pie chart. Balance is understanding that you can make peace with all of it. The positive and the negative, all the poles within us. I'm going to read really quickly this awesome quote because it's just rocks my world. This is Joel and Michelle Levy in their book. No matter how, it's a book, I can't remember the title, it's a book on balance. I'll read it now. No matter how much you might like to have only the positives in life, freedom, peace, and love, if you are seeking that static state, you will always be disappointed. For everything also contains its opposite, and both sides must be balanced. Form and space, creativity and receptivity, activity and rest, growth and decay, manifest creation, and the unmanifest source of all creation. So balance is about making peace with both sides in yourself. That means the things that you're working on with yourself, well, they're actually your superpowers. You know, the things that we think are biggest faults are our greatest gifts. It also means doing the same with other people and with life and time and space. And as your sense of balance grows, you'll find it easier to kind of navigate and make peace with those things that feel like negatives. It'll be easier to find your center because you'll understand you're taking away the good and the bad. That's what true balance offers us. And that is not what you see if you'll Google, you know, life balance, right? Like that's not what you see. That's the opportunity here. What are we doing? We're activating keys. The second activation key is to know your signs when you are getting out of balance, when you are feeling, know your signs ahead of time. So it's like being proactive. If we're already to the point where we're already burnt out, exhausted, so stressed out, if we've already fallen down, it doesn't even, it's very hard to even employ any tools that will help us get our balance if we're feeling wobbly. So it's helpful to know, well, how do I know when I'm feeling wobbly? Remember, again, balance is not about having everything be perfect, right? Balance is about being able to find your sway, right? When life comes, new things come, so we don't just fall over. It's finding that balance again. So the other thing to remember is that this, hold on just a moment. Sorry about that. That was my pre-flight checklist, but I only did it with one of my phones and not my other one. Goodness gracious. So we just got a phone for my son, Kai, that he can use it in, you know, limited means. But because it's a new phone number, it's just constant. It must have been somebody else's phone number because it's just ringing all the time. So who knows? Oh, here we go. Thank you for, yes, living in balance. Thank you for pulling that up, Lily. I appreciate that. So knowing, being proactive and knowing, okay, when I start snapping at people or I have a shorter temper, that's going to give me a little heads up that, okay, I need to do something that's going to help me get centered. That's different for everybody, but that's being proactive. A third key for activating balance is to be really aware of what's most important and making sure then that your time and your energy is in alignment with what your priorities are. Because one of the things that makes us feel off center is when we are putting too much of ourselves in a place that doesn't feel right. Often we can't even put our finger on why. But if we're not aligned with where our time and energy is going, you know, that's draining energy instead of giving energy. So that is why our activities actually do matter in a balanced life, not in the perfect little pie shape, right? But if we're looking at balance as this thing that helps us, this energy that helps us maintain our center, living our life and making our choices that line up accurately to align with our values and our priorities and what's most important helps maintain the integrity of our center. So, but obviously we can't do that unless we know what those values and priorities are. That's often, very often, our job as a coach is helping a client uncover what does she really want, and also what really drives her, what's really most important, and why. And they're such obvious questions, but they change. And so sometimes we may have priorities and values that were important to us, but maybe they're not anymore. Maybe something has shifted. So that's why it's really important to and helpful to be on top of that kind of inventory of priorities and values. And again, there are art assignments for that, which is awesome. All right, intuition is a gateway to the inner wisdom that we all possess. The challenges of intuition, one is if we have a very strong analytical mind, logical mind, cerebral mind, if that's very strengthened in us, that can sometimes get in the way of honing into the senses that we can't see. Another challenge with intuition is a low sense of self-esteem or self-value. If you are not trusting yourself, then it is very difficult to trust the messages that are coming to you or through you or with you. And then another challenge is a lack of quiet time and stillness. Not everybody needs quiet time and downtime and stillness for intuition. In fact, some people get most intuition when they're, all over the place, and that's when intuition comes in for them. However, while it's not a requirement, very often we are in our lives that are so busy and moving that we don't have time and space to be quiet and see what other input and information is there, because we have so much that we're never even aware of, and that's intuition. So activating intuition, developing a trust in yourself. And often this also includes developing a trust in that which is bigger than you or greater than you, your higher power, your Mother Earth, the universe, art itself, your muse. But it's just developing a trust and trusting that, one, that whatever that is for you, whatever that sense of what is bigger than you is, that you are so loved and so protected, and that you are just that you're adored, and that you can't do life wrong. You can't choose wrong. And so trusting both that source and our own agency, having trust, a deep trust, and cultivating trust. And there's some great art assignments for this as well. Because when we can trust ourselves, then we're more likely to trust our intuitive insights. Another activation key for intuition is to be aware of the different ways that intuition comes to us. Now, we have a whole week on intuition in a couple of weeks. I think it's week 5. So we're going to come back to intuition. But I will say now that the way we can activate it is be aware that intuition comes through in so many ways. We can have a channel on our intuition radio, and we can tap into those frequencies in lots of ways. Our sleeping dreams, our art, journaling, the sensations we get in our body visions that pop up. There are just lots of ways to play with intuition. And that is our third activation key, that playing with intuition is what strengthens it. It's a muscle. And so playing with it in intuitive games and things that don't matter necessarily are a way to play with accessing different parts of our intuition, which we may not have used. We have a whole week on that, so I'll keep that, I'll bring that to closure at this moment. All right. Vision. Vision is knowing what we want so that we can bring more of it into our lives. Before we can get what we want, we have to know what we want. The challenges of vision, first of all, anything that gets in the way of dreaming, desiring, wishing, wanting. If we have any blocks about any of those things, that's going to get in the way. Another one is not taking a vision far enough. You know, is having a vision, but it's not detailed, it's not clear, it doesn't feel real enough, it either lacks a specificity or a sizzle, right? It's just not taking the vision far enough. Another challenge is losing touch with the vision. And so activation keys that address these challenges. First of all, it's really important for us and our clients to, well, use any means. I was going to say use art assignments, but to use any of our tools to address the old messages or beliefs or stories. Anything that says it's not right to dream, you can't have that, that's too big, you shouldn't want that. Anything that is stopping a flow of desire or feeling like you can have that desire. So that's important. If there's a block there, and there often is, it is time well spent to take the ARTbundance art assignment magic to that, and archaeology art assignment that thing to get it out. Another key to activating vision is to work with vision in a consistent and creative way. So sometimes vision becomes very serious. It's this heavy thing. My vision statement, my plans, my visioning, my presence, my dreaming, and this is a fun thing to look at what you want and why you want it. That's awesome and fun. It doesn't have to be my vision. So we, in ARTbundance, we have these art assignments that let us play, play with just being, having fun with this life that we could be creating without having to necessarily get attached to it. Vision is about not just choosing, okay, I want this, but it's also, ooh, maybe I could want this. Oh, maybe this too. And having fun with it. Window shopping in the awesome boutique of life. Another activation for vision is to realize the importance of having support around vision in your life, supportive people, time and space to pursue it, prioritizing it so that your dream play is not the last thing on the list. Making a support system for vision a big priority and understanding how that makes all the difference. So, and again, we have art assignments for all this stuff, but that's really important, right? Is that you need people around you who know who can look at you with believing eyes. And even if it's not, it can even be a made-up person. It can be somebody in that card catalog, right? or your muse, but it's having that knowing, the people, knowing who it is who really, really believes in this for me. All right, how are we doing? We doing good? This is way more than I usually talk, so I feel so chatty. All right, we're good? All right, hold on. What do I have here to drink? Certainly there's something in this mess. Ah, here it is. All right, hold on. All right, stretch break. Okay. All right, we are going next to attraction. Attraction, I think of attraction as vision in motion. It's the way that our thoughts and our feelings and words and actions all work together to bring that vision, to bring more of what we want into our life. So in terms of challenges, one challenge is attachment to results. This idea of, okay, I want this, and being very attached to that actual thing. I want to be, I want this particular job. I want to be this, I want my book to be published by this publisher, or I want this project to be a book that is published by a publisher. Having a very specific idea of what that needs to look like. Another challenge with attraction is our negative beliefs and patterns, just our patterns that stop, that begin to take on attractive forces of their own. Because if we are always kind of moving through life with really coming right up against whatever we are projecting in our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, if those are coming right back to us. So it's like this stop and pull, like, oh, I could really live my dream. No, I couldn't. I could really live my dream. No, I couldn't. And so anytime that anything that's impeding magnetizing your good to you, that's going to throw things off a little bit. And then a third challenge is a lack of consistency, much like gratitude. You know, and this is, again, you guys have heard me say before, this is the whole reason I created art assignments, is I was finding like, oh, I was feeling really magnetic and like, I am so aware of what I'm creating and what I'm attracting, and I'm so in that zone, and it's a day later and I'm not. And, you know, and so having more of a consistent thread that continues, being consistent with attraction. So activation keys, number one, is that attraction is a conscious act. It's something that we can be aware of and actively do. So in ARTbundance, we'll come back to this, but we have a term, we call it canyon speak. And it's so awesome. Paula Graham, who was in one of the very first ARTbundance trainings, and she was just in the Grand Canyon recently, and she was like, oh my gosh, it was so ARTbundance canyon speak. But really all that means is whatever we're saying in the canyon of life is what's coming back to us. And it's a helpful tool to help reframe our thoughts and words and our actions. So that's one example of a tool, but we can also, there are lots of tools of ways that attraction can be a conscious act. Like, let me exercise this. Let me be aware of what I am attracting. The second activation key is in embracing and having awareness of attraction as an unconscious act. Seeing the way that canyon speak is always at work. You know, when we're feeling like, oh, this is going to be this is going to be a terrible day. That's setting something in motion. Doesn't mean that that's bad, but it does mean that it's happening. And so an awareness of attraction working consciously and unconsciously. A third activation key for attraction is to focus on essences rather than specifics. So when we're looking at, okay, here's what I want, I am aligning myself, my thoughts, feelings, words, actions with this that I want, but focusing on the essences of how we want to feel rather than the specifics. And, you know, sort of the quintessential example of this is, you know, do we really want the new car? No, we don't want the new car. What do we want? We want the freedom that comes with that car. Or we want a sense of pride that comes with that car, or whatever that is. We want the sense of succulent luxury, whatever the essence is. Because if we're aware of the essence, then if what we're wanting are these experiences of sweet, sensual luxury, well, then we're focused on attracting those kinds of experiences that don't necessarily come through a car. They may come in wonderful ways even better than the car. So focusing on essence rather than specifics. All right, choice. Choice is the point of power. It's the point of power. It's the place when our options are clear and we step into a point of power. Challenges related to choice. One is when we're feeling stuck and that we don't have any choices. Another challenge is pressure to make choices too quickly. And a third is feeling like there are too many choices, too many options, too many opportunities, and then there's anxiety about the right one. And so one or more of those may be something that you really, you know, really relate to. But they're all about our relationship with choice and how powered and how empowered or disempowered we feel in our relationship with this energy called choice. So some activation keys are ways to help improve this relationship. You know, in order to have a more fulfilling experience in our lives, we need a more fulfilling relationship with choice. One of them is to be comfortable with the chaos and the tension of not making a choice. Be okay with holding in that space of not knowing. This is what our world is doing right now, is being in that space of not knowing, because there are things, all of us, that we can't make choices about right now. We can't. And so we're learning how to be comfortable in that. Nietzsche says one must, what is it? The chaos within one. Before somebody look it up, it's one must give the chaos, make peace with chaos within one before giving birth to a dancing star. Something about that. It's the chaos within that's within us here. Let's see here. Another activation key for choice is looking at new options. You know, sometimes it's not about narrowing down the choices, but about widening the lens to see more. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's seeing fewer rather than as many. So it's like seeing that our choices, that we have adjustable binoculars for them, and that we can take a more narrow or a more broad view. And sometimes just changing it just sort of mixes it up, puts it in the snow globe a little bit, turns it upside down, and that kind of loosens the tension a little bit. Another activation key for choice is that knowing choice is not about, it's not just about what we do, but it's about what we feel. So there's definitely an issue with choice when we feel like, well, I didn't have a choice. I had no choice in that. This happened to me. This happened in my life. So we look at where we do have choices, right? And that often as how we feel, that we have choices in how we feel and how we respond and how we react. And again, feeling empowered by the choice we do have rather than disempowered by the choice we don't have. Again, art assignment's great for this. That's my third activation key. All right, action. We've 3 more. We're 2/3 of the way. Another stretch break. Stretch break. Oh, thank you, Imbraya. You must still have chaos within oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. That's it. I had chaos within my oneself in trying to remember that quote. Okay, all right. Next, you guys jotting down, taking notes or doodles of things that you're hearing or that's coming through? Okay, awesome. All right, next is connection. Connection is, I see connection as an exchange with others, and it's the giving and receiving reciprocal energy and support. This can, and this is, I'm really grateful because when I first sort of made this framework, or this framework made me, and this was one of the principles, I really thought of it as interpersonal, our connections with other people. And through ARTbundance, it's been really cool to see other people and the way that they experience connection as not just being our relationship with other people, but with, you know, other living things, with animals, plants, or non-living things, just the ways that we connect and interact with everything in our life. So it doesn't have to necessarily just be about people, of course. So the challenges in connection, one of them is limiting ourselves to our immediate circle. Like if we're really thinking about connection as this superpower that helps us give and receive energy and support, if we can limit ourselves to only what we have right here. And that kind of puts a stop at the potential of connection. I skipped action. I'll come back to it. Another challenge is anytime that we are feeling inauthentic with how we're showing up for other people, whether that's because we feel like we have to pretend, or we feel there's an expectation of that when we're with that person or that type of person or anything, when we're not showing up in what we truly really are, that is blocking that like superpower of connection. And then the third challenge is relationship specific patterns, like in a particular relationship, a pattern, a dynamic, a repeated story, something that's, on repeat. Loop that's very specific about the relationship, and it's getting in the way of this incredible support of energy that can come through with connection. Activation keys. So one is specifically when we're looking at relationships for yourself or with your clients, we can kind of harness the energy of connection by focusing on what is working and what you want rather than what you don't want. So instead of, well, this just isn't working, I don't want this, and this isn't any relationship, focus on what is working and focus on what you want and also why you want it. Those things are going to help a lot. The other thing is to search for connections based on who you want to be. Not just who you are, but who you want to be. Expanding your connections then to see more possibilities. Carolyn Mace, the author, says we evolve at the rate of the tribe we are plugged into. The third activation key is communication energy. I talked a little bit about that in week 1, and that is coming up in week after next. So we have our whole week on communication. Yes, we have 2 weeks now on communication energy. That is really about honing in, again, on your authenticity, that essence of who you are. You know, I told the story about my dad saying, you know, Marnie, you come in and I feel excited and I feel alive and hopeful, and your sister comes in and I feel like protected and safe and everything's going to be okay. And we all have that thing that is hard to even describe. But when we are in that thing, that is when connection, the superpower, can blossom, because we're coming to somebody else from our true place. There's not a block in between us and wherever we're meeting that other person. All right, action. Action is the legs of the principles. It's like it takes all of the principles and moves them. Action. This is my principle. I mean, this is my strength in terms of the one that comes natural to me is move, 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 move. Which is not always a good thing, but there are people who have resistance or struggle around action. One of the challenges, so 3 of the challenges of action. One is a stagnation or a stillness that has lasted a long time. Long standing still or stuck is hard. Another challenge is when it's overwhelmed, where it just seems like there's so many things to take action. There's too much to do. Where do I even start? And so there's an inaction that comes because it's so overwhelming. The other is anything, a variety, a rainbow of resistances, which are excuses, habits, ways of doing, protection, procrastination, the things that stop us from taking action. Because any inaction, I believe, any inaction is in itself an action. So when we're looking at, you know, if we're not taking action on something, that in itself is an action. You know, there's a choice there. There is something happening. When working with clients, you know, we can look at, well, if they haven't done these 3 small action steps that they were going to take, why not? Not in a judgment way. Not when I work with clients, I love that, like that detective work, not in a, well, why didn't you do that, you know, but really like, well, why didn't you do that? Why? What's up? Because that's where we learn. We learn when we struggle, you know. We're going to learn a lot more about ourselves when we look at the shit we don't do than the stuff we do, right? So knowing that and really valuing the knowledge that our inaction gives us. Oh, so I've kind of moved into activation keys. Understanding the value of looking at why am I stuck? Not in a defeatist, not in a self-critical, not in a judgmental, but really just curious. Why am I stuck? Why? Maybe. And of course, this is where archaeology, our assignments are so great because they can get to the heart of the matter really, really quickly. If we can get unstuck sooner, that really, really helps, because the longer we're stuck, the harder it is to get moving again. Another key for activation in activating action is to break down big actions into smaller actions and really see the value in small steps, to not scorn small units of time, or not write off, put into second clause, you know, the little steps. Oh, those little steps are golden, right? To really understand that. The third key for action is the key of momentum. I was talking with Wendy this morning about this. What moves us is what moves us. That's the big secret. What moves us is what moves us. If we follow our energy, follow where the current is going, follow what moves us emotionally, that moves us into action. So when people say, you know, how do you get so much done? To me, you know, that's how I approach and how I naturally will live. What moves us is what moves us. And I truly believe this. And if we're not taking action on something, there's a reason. So either figure out that reason or move somewhere else. If somebody were to, you know, have a camera on me during my day, right? Oh, horror of horrors. But if somebody was watching me in my day, because I move very quickly, I move very quickly from one thing to another, and they would likely say, like, this girl is the most scattered thing. She probably never gets anything done. But whenever the energy, whenever that momentum, whenever I'm not feeling it, I'll just go to something else so I can feel it again. My point here is, for me personally, and I think that there is an aspect of this that is universal. It doesn't, not necessarily just like me, but there's a universal aspect of momentum. Momentum is the secret to action. Keeping momentum going, not stopping. So whatever that means, that following, doing. If you can't do this, do something else, right? Following the flow, following the current. Make sure you don't get blocked there. What moves us is what moves us. And so, you know, that goes contrary to so many things that are linear in the way that we live. You know, I work a lot with entrepreneurs, as most of you know, probably. And, you know, people come in with this idea that their business plan is supposed to go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's awesome. If you don't have any block or resistance, I mean, if that works and you can go from 1 to 2, 3 and you never get stuck, fantastic. But that's not the case for most people. Most people will go 1, 2, then they're stuck on 3. And then if they're stuck on 3, a lot of times they'll stay stuck on 3. So this idea of following the energy means you go 1, 2, 7, 99, 3, 7, 8, 7 again, 2, 6. And so that is this sort of non-linear whirlpool. All right, and the last principle that I will talk about is service. So just as I said, gratitude is a core principle that I believe the rest are based on. For me, service is at the top. It doesn't mean it's the best, but there is, to me, service is the greatest use of our energy, because it is where we really do become more than ourselves. Now, services challenges. Number 1, a limiting definition or association of service. A lot of people think service means giving stuff away, taking care of everybody else, sacrificing yourself, giving everything away for free. So if there are associations there, well, you know, you're probably not going to connect in with the magic of service if that brings up a draining feeling for you. Another challenge of service is a perception of lack, that there's not enough to share. That could be time, money, talent, skills, ideas, energy, enthusiasm, not enough. A third challenge for service is, how do you reconcile service and your own creative dream? How do I reconcile what I want to give with what I want to receive? And how do those even mesh, especially if we are on a path where we are using our gifts, whatever they are, and we are on a path of creating career, creating work, or creating our right livelihood with them. So activation keys. First of all, to strengthen our personal experience of enough, right? Trusting that and having a new relationship with having enough time, talent, money, skills, ideas, enthusiasm. Another is to focus on the ways that we can express service that bring you energy rather than deplete you. I'm going to post something on our message board about service and sharing. And if we can really come right down to it and realize that service really, it's not sacrifice. Service is sharing. And when I'm going to be talking later about building your business or expanding your practice on the principle of service, that does not mean we give everything away. But it does mean that we are building on this great use of our energy, which is sharing what we have. And sharing that, we can invoke the principle of service and receive compensation for it. And in fact, our next activation key is incorporating service into our personal goals. Service is the expression of sharing our gifts, but we're in that circle of abundance too. It's not an either or. It's not either I sell what I have or, you know, or I serve. Like, you know, it's not either I sell or I give it away. It's finding the blend there. And there's a lot more to say about that. I think I'll post about that. Oh my gosh. I never talk that much. I mean, I do, but like not in class, without breaks, with other people. If my husband was here, he'd be like, that's not true, she does. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to stick you in small groups, and I'm gonna keep this really free form. Sometimes your small groups, you'll have a very like set assignment or project. I'm gonna put you in groups, and you're just gonna have a time to just share. Perhaps pick one thing maybe to start with that really resonated with you or that you're really curious about. Maybe start with something that, maybe pick two things. One thing that you really like we're like, yes, 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 that's so helpful. And something else that's like, yeah, I don't get it. And then just share about those things free form. We're gonna have, hold on just a second. We will have, let's take 15 minutes to do this. So you'll need to kind of, you'll have 3 or 4 participants in your room. So somebody just kind of watch time. If you have 3 participants, that means everybody gets about 5 minutes. If you have 4, a little less, right? And then we'll come together right at 7:30 or 8:30 Eastern, and we'll have a quick wrap up at that point. Is that clear? Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to put you in your rooms, and in a moment you'll have something on your screen that says go to your room. And I think that's all I had to say about that. While I'm doing that, you can just sort of take note of things that feel like might be something that you would like to say. Zara says guidance again. Perhaps think of 2 things perhaps that you might like to share. Maybe one thing that makes you feel really like, oh, this was so helpful, I get it, that was awesome. And maybe something else that was like, yeah, I'm not getting this. Now remember, the idea is not, you don't have to get everything that I said, remember? This isn't like, oh, now I must follow the principles. But if you want to understand, like there's something I said and you're like, yeah, I'm not really quite sure I understand that. So that's one possible guidance, or you could just share